By Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that all items listed under the consent agenda be approved. Your vote, please. That is approved 7-0. You're okay with it? Yes. Thank you. Next is a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 biennial budget.
So like we did for the council or for the city and the BPW budgets here last time, we have the BASWA budget to go over. If you brought your packets with you, if not, we'll make sure we read some numbers off for you. We look at where we think FY21 is going to end up. We think it's just going to be just a shy over $2 million in revenue for them this year for the BASWA. And then for the next 2 years, it's right about 1.9 million. It's pretty consistent for FY22 and FY23 as we move forward. If you'll look through some of those numbers, some things are changing just again with us taking over the garbage collection in the community. You see some numbers kind of move from one category to another, but you see that ultimately the numbers end up being very similar to what they were in the past as they move forward. If you look at the operating expenses, we figure we should be about 1.2 this year. We're about 1.4 each of the next couple of years as we look forward in this budget. There have been some operational changes at the landfill this last year, which account for some of those differences. One is the compost site, which is located next to the landfill, has always been under the operations of the WPC department in the BPW. We've transferred that to the landfill here this year. And so the landfill now receives some income from the WPC for receiving the sludge that's out there, but now they're also responsible for providing the manpower that's needed, which is usually one employee out there, as well as ultimately the equipment that goes out there moving forward. So that's been one change operationally that you see impacting their budget. The other one is, well, I guess that's it, because we also added a half-time employee halfway through, which is the individual we just talked about. But $150,000 is what the WPC pays BASWA moving forward to care for the sludge and processing it into the compost that everybody's used to going out and picking up at the site. Probably the next thing, if you look at, is on the capital side of expenditures. We have to put money away for financial assurances. Again, this is your closure, post-closure fund. Once the landfill finally closes, we'll be responsible for that site for quite some time, and so we need to make sure we have money budgeted to continue to make the upgrades and repairs that are necessary there. In FY21, we're putting away $400,000 in that account. In FY22, we're putting away $300,000. FY23, right now, we don't have any money budgeted, but there's some things there we're looking at as we move forward. Depends on one, the kind of tonnage that comes into the landfill, and two, there's some equipment needs. We may look at that point by the time we get to there to see about doing a lease purchase as opposed to an outright purchase of the equipment to free up some cash. But we'll look at those options as they come nearer. When you look at the capital expenditures at BASWA, the most expensive expenditure by far is engineering services. If you recall, we hire Burns and McDonald to do the engineering services for the landfill. Tonight you have actually two task orders to consider for this next upcoming year. One has to do with the compost site and renewing their permit. The other has to do with permitting of the new landfill there on the south side of the road there as we move forward. So those are the kind of the big things we're working on in their budget for the upcoming time. Questions about BASWA and their budget for the next couple of years?
When you reach a point where, when we reach a point where the trash services in the community are money makers, when we paid off the bond, do you anticipate any of those revenues going in towards BASWA to help offset these costs, or do you intend to have that all stay within the general fund?
I mean, right now, if you look, the sanitation department pays BASWA, what, $820,000, $850,000 each of the next 2 years, I believe. So, you know, they pay quite a bit of money out to the landfill. We'll continue to evaluate that and see what number makes sense. So they will have to make some payment, obviously, to BASWA, what that payment is moving forward and how much you retain into the general fund. The conversations they have at that point.
And I realize it's 4 years
down. 10 years. The bonds you issued were 10-year bonds.
You're going to be ahead of that, but you're going to be
we plan to be, but
yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
I move the public hearing be closed at 6:35.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that the public hearing be closed at 6:35 PM. Your vote, please. Mr. Dorn, and that is approved 8-0. The records show that Mr. McLean has joined us. Next is a resolution number 62, executing task force number 13 for the engineer owner agreement between the city and Burns McDonald Engineering Company Incorporated for professional services, including supplemental hydrogeologic investigation, field and laboratory testing service, and preparation of a Title 132 solid waste permit application.
I move that resolution number 62 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh and seconded by Morgan, that resolution 62 be passed and adopted. Tobias?
So task order number 13 is before you tonight. This is for the design or the permitting work of the new landfill on the south side of the road there. This application is for $225,600. Is what this task order is for. Work is to be completed this fiscal year, so it'll be completed by September 30th of 2020. When we started looking at the new landfill, our initial estimates were that our current landfill, we would need to be building a new one by FY24. Most recent calculations are we might be able to get by to FY27, but we want to make sure all the permitting is done. And if we get to a point where the permitting is done and we can hold off construction, we may look to do that at that point and delay it, just depending on how the tonnage is coming into the current landfill and how compaction is going there. But we want to make sure we're ready. We don't want to get to a point where we're behind and we're late trying to get the next landfill open. And so that's why we continue to move forward with the permitting process on the new landfill. Additionally, Burns and Mac on their preliminary investigation of the new landfill have found a way that maybe we can add some additional life to our new landfill. There's some groundwater there at certain locations, and they believe they might be able to mitigate some of those and allow us to go a little deeper for our first opening cell. If that's the case, we might be able to add as much as like 1.4 million cubic yards to our new landfill. In years, it's roughly about 10 years is what we might be able to add. So we want to make sure we get into the state early, talk to them, get them to understand what we're trying to do, hopefully get them on our side and see how this can be positive for both them and for us. And so that's why we want to make sure we continue to move forward with this as we go forward. When you look at, again, the debt side of BASWA, right now we have all of the bond payments and lease purchase payments that we've done over the years scheduled to be paid off in 2024, which is when you look to issue bonds for the construction of your new landfill. If we're able to wait until FY25, we're in a better position. FY26, even better. But if nothing else, we're planning on having everything done and paid off by FY24 when you'd issue the new bonds.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
Those permits, if we get them done, how long do they, before they drop off? Will they carry us to 27
Yes.
if we get that lucky?
Yes.
I don't tend to be sitting here in 27, but how long does it take to build the landfill? I mean, you're talking about construction costs, so actually how long does it, if you can't get the additional cell to dig deeper, if it just stays on the plan that is today?
Construction is going to be about a year. What's going to take a little bit longer on this side as opposed to the last cell you built, cell 5, the piggyback cell, is you got to remember you're going to move everything south of the road. So your scale house moves south, whatever additional buildings you want to build down there. You have to build leachate ponds, stormwater ponds, all that stuff has to get rebuilt on the south side of the road as opposed to last time you had to dig the initial cell. So that's why you're going to look at construction, probably going to be about a year.
So you're pushing out to 27, hopefully to start in it. So you're adding 6 years, and if you go deeper, you got 10 years, that's 16. So, and the life of the landfill is?
Somewhere around 75, 80.
I was going to guess 50. I thought that was the initial conversation.
It was, but we're getting better compaction with the compactor that we're using now as opposed to the baling system. So
Well, I definitely won't be here to mess with that.
What's that?
Money well
Thanks.
spent.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, the council body that bought that is looking smarter and smarter all the time.
This time.
This time, yeah.
No.
Keep the parameters small.
Any other questions of Tobias?
Pitt and I are humble.
All right, Mr. Claybaugh,
We've got a motion on the
I
floor.
beg your pardon. Your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Mr. Dorn votes yes. Resolution number 62 has been passed and adopted. Next is resolution number 63, executing task force number 15 for the engineer-owner agreement between the city and Burns McDonnell Engineering Company Incorporated for professional services, including preparation of a Title 132 solid waste compost site permit renewal application for the Beatrice compost facility.
I move that resolution number 63 be passed and adopted.
Second.
By Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that resolution number 63 be passed and adopted.
So this task order is for the compost site. We have to renew that application. I believe they're good for every 5 years when it comes time to have those renewed. And so that's what you see before you. Again, $62,700 is the amount. Work should be done by early November is what they're anticipating. Really no changes in the compost site as far as operations go, and so it shouldn't be that much with the permit renewal itself. We don't foresee any problems. For those that are asking yourself what happened to task order number 14, task order number 14 was another piece of work that we asked Burns & Mac to quote for us, some engineering work we'd like to have done. Quite frankly, we just couldn't fit it into the budget, and so that's why we pulled that task order, and we'll look to do that one in a future time.
Haven't had any issues there at all, have we?
No.
Good. Questions, gentlemen? Mr. Claybaugh?
We have a motion on the floor.
Beg your pardon, I did it again, didn't I?
All right.
And your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Resolution number 63 has been passed and adopted. Next is a public forum. Purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to BASWA for consider at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken at this time. Is there anybody here for the public forum? All right, seeing none. The next item on the agenda is approval of fiscal year 2022-2023 biennial budget.
I move that the proposed budget of disbursements for fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $1,849,654 and the proposed budget of disbursements for fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $2,067,536 be approved.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that the proposed budget of disbursements for fiscal year 22-23 be approved. Any discussion? And your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Mr. Claybaugh?
I move that the meeting be adjourned at 6:43 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that the meeting be adjourned at 6:43 p.m. Your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Dorn, for coming. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Let the record show that all members of the City Council are present this evening, with the exception of Councilman Bilsbach. Copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the meeting room and is accessible to members of the public at any time during the course of this meeting. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests. First item is item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of minutes of regular meeting on August 16th, 2021, as on file in the city clerk's office. Item E, approval of minutes of special meeting on August 30th, 2021, as on file in the city clerk's office. Item F, approval of treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $466,027.70. Item G, approval of BASWA report of claims in the amount of $153,218.15. Item H, resolution number 6760, regulating parking along 5th Street from the intersection of Market Street to Perkins Street, along 8th Street from the intersections of Ella Street to Market Street, and along Ella Street from the intersection of Hayes Street to North 16th Street. Item I, resolution number 6761, entering into a lease with Gage County for office space in the Beatrice Police Station used for the Gage County Probation Office. And item J, resolution number 6767, adopting the Little Blue Natural Resources District and Lower Big Blue Natural Resources District Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan Update. Any item that anyone from the council wants removed from the consent agenda? Gentlemen, Mr. Claybaugh?
I move that the items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and are ratified as presented.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that all items listed under the consent agenda be approved. Your vote, please. That is approved 7-0. Next is a public hearing to set the fiscal year 2022 final property tax request.
So, last week, we went over the budget that we proposed, this before you. So tonight, we have to have the public hearing on setting the final property tax request. So for FY 22, we have a property tax request of $2.8 million, which is a 2% increase from the previous year. The valuations in the city of Beatrice have increased 4% and are now just under $740 million. And so the tax rate for the city of Beatrice itself is a decrease of 2%. And all that information was published in our budget notice in the Beatrice Daily Sun.
It's good news. Questions, gentlemen? Anyone from the public? All right, and your vote, please. I beg your pardon.
Motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing.
I move that the public hearing be closed at 7:03 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Kerr, that the public hearing be closed at 7:03 p.m. Your vote, please. That is approved 7-0. Next is a public hearing on the proposed 1- and 6-year road and street plan for fiscal year 2022.
And I believe, James, are you coming up to, Jason, Joe, you guys, both of you, one of you, coming up to handle 1 and 6? Usually we did, in the years past, if those have been around long enough, remember we used to do 1 and 6 in about February time period. The state has changed the rules and let us do it when we want to. We found it works better to do it at the time of the budget. And so that's why you see the 1 and 6 coming back at this point before you.
All right, real quick, since we have quite a bit of people in the audience that might not understand what a 1 and 6 is, basically it used to be, at least the state statute used to be, that we had to have these turned in by February. And a 1 and 6 year street plan is basically our way of showing the state we receive 223,000 approximately funds from the state each year to go towards roadway projects. And a 1 and 6 is a way of budgeting out those dollars to prove to the state that we are actually indeed using those funds for street projects. And they've asked us to lay those out for 6 years. As you, I think, are going to approve tonight or look at tonight, the biannual budget, which we have every 2 years, we do it every 2 years. So the key projects that we want to look at are the first 2 years that we have in our 1 and 6 and make sure those match up with what our budget is. And real quick, one of the tools, I guess, that we use that we want to go over is a program that we call Street Logics. And a lot of you may recall a year or 2 years ago, we entered a contract with this company, and basically they take a car and it has cameras mounted on the front, side, and back of this car. And they have a program that has algorithms in it that looks at the evaluation or evaluates the pavement as they're driving. It looks at the cracks, it looks at the size of cracks, it looks at the number of cracks, it looks at the deviation and elevation of the pavement. And basically after they get done driving, it gives us an evaluation of that pavement and tells us what is the rating of that pavement. And that's a way for us to evaluate those pavements, determine if they need to be replaced, maintenance, what we need to do with them. Prior to that, I think every 2 or 3 years, if you're a street superintendent like Jason is, you're required to do a visual inspection of your streets anyway and have some sort of mechanism that you can rate your streets on. And to do that would take, I mean, with the number of, I think we have 100 center mile of roadway.
326
Lane miles, but 100 center line miles of streets. So for him to go out and physically drive or walk, each one of these would take months to get this evaluation done. So this is just a speedier way of getting that evaluation done using this program. One of the key things, I guess, to note on there is this dashboard. You can say the pavement average rating conditions is an 82 out of 100. That, to me, shows that our maintenance program is working, that we score so high on our pavement rating, score of 0 to 100. And those evaluations that we look at, evaluation, where's that at here, Aaron? So what we're looking at here is, you know, a failed pavement is 0 to 10. Serious, in need of repair, is 10 to 25, so on until you get to fair condition, which is 55 to 70. Good is 70 to 85. So if we have a dashboard that tells us our overall pavement index 82, the overall picture of our pavement is in good condition. So again, I think that bodes well for Jason and his group and what they're doing with our roadways. Now, surely we're going to have some that don't rate so high, and we have some that are new and they rate really high. This is just one of the tools, and this is what we look at is anything that was in the very poor or serious or failed condition are the roads that we want to address right away in our repairs that we're showing in our 1 and 6 year. Now, is this the end all? Absolutely not. This is just a tool that we use. The ultimate decision is made by Jason's experience and his knowledge of the roadway conditions, or myself and him and I talk about these projects and then go from there what we can fit into the budget. Now, this particular program has a lot of different tools that we can use in it, and I'm getting to where we're understanding the program better. We're going to use it more and more. It can actually help us to set up our budgets as well. And it can also prioritize our projects based on the functional class of the roadway, the amount of traffic on the roadway. So all those keys can be put into the program and used to determine our pavement repairs. We're not quite there yet. We're working on it, but right now we're kind of relying on Jason's experience and what he's seeing out there and what we honestly hear from the people and the council. You know, sometimes we get complaints on a certain section of roadway and we try to go look at it and see if we can get it fit in the budget or not. So with that, I think we'll move in. I think y'all have a copy of the 1 and 6 year map, and I apologize to the public, I don't have that.
They don't give you, they don't give you more or less for arterials, feeders. It's all, road is a road is a road.
Yeah, it's a lump sum payment that we get to use how we need to make these repairs.
Okay.
Yep. Now, we try to look at that, we really do. You know, we're gonna be talking about Lincoln Street tonight. You know, it's arterial roadway. And so we pay closer attention, of course, to those arterial roadways and then collectors and then local roads. So we do take that in consideration when we're looking at these projects. So real quick,
We're going to use that anymore.
yeah, but we provided a map, and I think all you have, and basically it's color coordinated from 1 to 6 year, and you know, blue being the first year and so on, and then I believe y'all have this spreadsheet as well, and these are color coordinated as well. So the first year is blue, and that matches the color on the map with the associated projects that we're doing.
I'll just keep staring at it.
Again, I realize it's hard to see. We got so much information we're trying to put on there. It's kind of hard to blow up and see. But just going through some of the projects real quick on our first year. One of the, I guess, kind of coupled together is 4th and Lincoln Street. So basically 4th Street from Grant to Lincoln, and then Lincoln Street from 4th to 5th. It's currently asphalt but has concrete curb and gutter. And that section of roadway gets a lot of traffic. If you ever gone down on Grant Street or made those corners, there's we actually get a lot of truck traffic. Those turning movements on that asphalt roadway wreak havoc when you only have 2 inches of asphalt. And so we're constantly repairing it about instead of 5, 6 years, we're repairing it like every 2 to 3 years. I think that section of roadway we just did, it had been 4 years ago, And it's already alligator, there's cracks everywhere. We had a bad winter 2 winters ago where water got underneath of it and actually physically raised the asphalt about 2 or 3 inches up. So because of all the traffic that we have on that roadway, we'd like to go back with concrete in that section to combat that. And so that's why, and because of the truck traffic, that's why you see we're proposing to do 8 inches of concrete in that section. The next big project that we have is 11th Street from Lincoln to Park, and that is a mill and overlay. That is next to the old hospital, if you recall where that's at, where that new housing development went in. That road is just falling apart on us. Jason's been trying to Band-Aid it for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's just time to completely redo that roadway. And it's a large project with a large price tag of almost $400,000. The remaining projects on the 1 year are armor coating and asphalt rejuvenator projects. I guess the way I look at it, the best way to explain those type of processes and how we use them is, to me, the asphalt rejuvenator is where we have a good pavement that's just been laid like 2 or 3 years ago. It's a way of prolonging the life of that pavement to, in actuality, rejuvenate it and get it back to 100% value where it's at and try to hold that as long as we can. Armor coat or the mastic sealing that you've seen us do, those are, hey, I hope we can get this road to last 5 more years until we can armor coat it. And so it's just a way for us to prolong those roads as long as we can until we can get to a mill and overlay process.
And honestly, for the price of what you look and what you get, an armor coat is going to be the cheapest price per square yard of any sort of sealing that we can do. I mean, really, armor coat is the cheapest form that's going to get us 5 years on most streets and 15 on some low volume streets. Right. And before we have to go back and then you're looking at the plows where they scrape off some of the armor coat and you'll start to get black stripes or something where you're coming through. So armor coat really is for the bang for your buck. That's where armor coat is.
And I guess the key thing you might want to consider here is the fact that in terms of the budget, which may be approved tonight, that budget is $764,000, and we are basically under that by $22,000, which leaves us a little bit of room if a project comes in over budget, or if we can get some other armor coat projects in, you know, if something comes under budget, then we can do that as well. So that's the beauty of doing this, the 1 and 6 at about the same time as you're doing the budgets, that we have a good idea what our budgets will be, and we can fit those projects better into that realm. So, is there any questions on the 1 year? Yes, sir.
It'd be the second year I want to question.
Okay, sure.
On the rejuvenators, how long more do you get? Another 5 years out of the road by using that stuff?
Yeah, well, the idea is that an asphalt curve, you know, when you start out at 100%, that at 5 years, that curve is slowly bringing it down with age, and the idea is you put that asphalt rejuvenator on there, it brings it back up to 100%. You hope you can prolong that asphalt out to 20 or 30 years is your goal. You know, when we do 2-inch mill and overlays, we're lucky to get 5 years out of those. So we're just applying this product onto streets that have a structural base to them. And what I mean by that is asphalt that's over 6 inches thick, or asphalt that's on brick, or asphalt that's on concrete, something that has a structural component to it. Because if I use that money on a 2-inch asphalt thick project, it doesn't matter what I do, it's gonna fall apart. And that's what Jason and I are trying to address right now, is pick some of these 2-inch mill and overlay projects off and put a bigger base underneath them to get them to last longer.
And that's why you're looking at some of the projects that we've done over the last couple of years. We've went to 3-inch mill and overlays. And so the years of putting down, for years and years and years, we've done 2-inch mill and overlays. And what that 2 inches, that's 2 inches in the center, but your outside edge isn't 2 inches. And so heavy truck traffic, garbage trucks, school buses, anytime they start to stop on that edge of the road, that's just putting stress right there on the outside edge. You get a little water and that curb wants to come underneath that curb line, it comes back in and the outside edges blow up. And so, yeah, and so we end up having troubles. And so by going to 3 inches, we've been able to not have those problems. So,
Is there new products coming on, like in the future, as technology changes?
You know, one thing that I think that we've been good about, or Jason has too, is we're not stuck just with one product, because that's what we've always done.
Yeah.
What we've always done is just armor coats. That's it. You know, we're trying the asphalt rejuvenator, something that we're seeing how it performs over the next 5-6 years. And then Jason wanted to try a new product this year, the mastic sealing, which is where you've seen the actual black tar or epoxy sprayed onto the asphalt. It's a product that he wanted to try. So we're evaluating all three of those and seeing how they perform. And, you know, if one doesn't work, we're not gonna use it anymore, you know, so,
Yeah,
Yep.
Hopefully saves us some money.
yeah. Any more questions on year one?
Who did your mastic sealing?
Hall Brothers.
Hall Brothers out of Marysville.
Yep.
Are they gonna be in town yet this week?
No, Pro Seal.
Pro Seal is.
Who's doing the asphalt rejuvenation project will be here Friday.
Okay.
Yep. All right, year two. One of the big projects that we're doing in year two is 13th Street from Beaver to Oak. It's a concrete roadway section. It's one that we've had some issues with. I believe there's a sanitary sewer line that's underneath that road that we've fought for years with settlement issues, and it's causing pavement deformations and everything in that area. So we're looking at redoing that, possibly doing a stabilized base to try to control some of the movement of the roadway and redo it and get that roadway up to standards. Pretty large scale project, but it's something that's been asked, been done for some years now. So, and that'll go back in at 7-inch. And so one of the reasons I get asked a lot is we used to do a lot of 6-inch. And I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I like using 7-inch is because if we say 6-inch, my contractors will use a 2x6. Well, guess what? 2x6 is not 6 inches thick. It's 5 3/4 inch, and that's about what I get, 5 3/4 or 5 1/2. If I go to 7-inch pavement, they'll use a 2x8, and then we can put our screenings in there, and I can make sure that I get 7 inches of pavement, and it's gonna hold up. So that's why we have some of the changes in terms of thicknesses that we're going with our pavements. After that, since that project is a pretty significant project, you see it's $518,000 for that street project. So pretty much what we've tagged everything else for is maintenance projects, armor coating and asphalt rejuvenator projects again for that year. And then again, if you look in terms of budgeted for that year is $576,000, and we will be over by 16,000. But we can adjust, you know, depending on how bids come in. If they come over, then we can take some of the armor coating projects out or the rejuvenator projects out and make sure that we keep within our budget. So,
Questions on year two?
year two?
Yeah. You've got from Thayer Street to Sumner Street on year two. From Sumner Street to just short of Sherman Street, you back that down to third year. And then from that point out past FCC, we're back to second year. If we're doing that road, why aren't we all just doing it all on year two?
That's the new stretch that was
Are you talking
just
Scott
done.
Street?
Yes.
Yes,
That's
Yeah.
the new stretch that was just completed this year.
Yep, because we just did Scott Street.
the yellow, or the,
There, we don't get any, there's financially, it doesn't do us any good to come in and seal a road 1 year after it's been done.
Right.
We're just putting money on it when we could put it off another year. So financially, that's and you look at, a lot of times you look at projects, where a project went to and where it starts and stops. If we were to come in and we were to do that street next year, there really wouldn't be any aggregate that's missing from the surface yet. The surface really wouldn't be any oxidation yet. It wouldn't be porous or sun bleached really yet. So really, by moving it off 1 more year, that's just us. It's just the financially smart thing to do.
Now,
Makes
to
sense.
answer your question the other way too, is by doing that on these, those sections could be ready in another 5 years, right? And then that new section will be 5 years old, and then we can do it at the same time.
and
So-
that makes sense.
Any questions on year two?
Yeah, can you make these bigger next?
I know,
I tell him that every year.
He gets mad all the time
It's
for
a lot
that.
easier.
So, what we really want you to pay close attention to is year one and year two, and the fact that those projects and how they're meeting the current budget proposed. We always kind of look at year 3 through 6 as kind of our wish list, and everything's kind of fluid. We can move them around however we need to fit the budget. And as you can see here, we have one of the projects in year 3 is Ella Street. That is the section from 2nd to 3rd. So Ella has been new asphalt from 6th to 3rd. 3rd has been new asphalt from Ella to Court. Your 2nd Street in front of the museum has been redone all the way. So we have this one section in there that is kind of an eyesore. It's kind of the old brick. You know, we feel like if we can get that cleaned up, it'd kind of help tie that whole area in with a nice new pavement. Now, there's several different things we can do with that. We can either try to go back in with the brick, like the museum did, to kind of give it some historical significance and try to put like a center island in there with some sort of designation. We can do that, or we can just go back in and do it all concrete. There's different ways we can do it, but those are discussions we can have over the next 2 years on what the council or what the people want that area to look like, and then attack it from that viewpoint. So that's what we're proposing in year 3. And then, as you can see, you have Lincoln Street. So as we talked about, when I first got here 7 years ago, they did a mill and overlay project on Lincoln Street, 2 inches of asphalt for the whole length of Lincoln Street from 6th to 18th. It's already fallen apart. It's 5, 6, 7 years old already, and it's fallen apart. So we really felt like instead of chasing this all the time and putting new asphalt down every 5 or 6 years, let's fix it. Let's do something that's going to last the long haul. So, but Lincoln Street, as you well know, for us, for the city of Beatrice, engineering department to do it, we could do a block or 2 blocks at a time. Well, that long a stretch and that high traffic of a roadway, I think we want to approach where we look at it and say, what's the best fit for that road? And I don't want everybody to freak out here, but we're talking about, does the road need to be the same width and no parking? Does the road need to have center turn lanes? Does the roadway need to have no parking on it? Does the road need to have parking only in certain areas? Does the roadway need to be taken in and no parking on it? There's all those scenarios that we need to investigate and decide how we want Lincoln Street to look. And then approach it holistically from 6th to 19th and seeing what we want that to look like. Once we have that designed, then we come back and build it in phases. So then we decide if we can only afford 2 blocks or 4 blocks at a time, we'll come and build it. But at least we have the plans done for the whole corridor. And because it could include sidewalks, it could include retaining walls, for people's property. It could involve moving sidewalks back, removing trees. All that is a part of this large-scale project.
What do you think 8-inch concrete in today's dollars would cost to do that entire stretch?
We got cost from an engineering firm, and it was about $3 million.
Concrete it from 6th to 19th?
Yep.
It needs to go to 22nd in your plan.
Yeah.
Because it's it's concrete from 19th to 22nd, but you have a jog over at 22nd.
Yep.
We talked about that, the 12th and 13th.
Yeah, we did.
Jog.
And that's something that we can always add in there too, like you were talking about, as we go on.
One lane is the south lane is half curb, half street.
Right.
You need to, so when you're looking at this to 19th Street, it needs to go from 6th to 22nd.
Yeah. We also, last year, we did an intersection study at 19th and Lincoln. So we have that in our hands in terms of, what that intersection should be. Should it be signalized? Should we have turn lanes? That's already been done. We're proposing over this next year to do a study at 6th and Lincoln. Because that intersection really bothers me about how you have people oncoming, it looks like they're coming right at you.
Yep.
And then have to jog over to miss you as they come further to the west. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I hate it. I'd like us to do something different in that intersection. That's why on year 1, when we're doing Lincoln Street, we're only going from 4th to 5th. Because we don't want to go from 5th to 6th, and if we're going to talk about different intersection improvements, to spend money when we don't know what that's going to be yet.
Yep.
So.
And so we can look at this as come back and say, we're gonna try and bite off 3 blocks at a time, and we're gonna try and make this painful for 5 summers or 4 summers, or we're gonna try and come back to you guys and say, listen, this is what it is if we do the entire thing all at once. And we pull the Band-Aid off all at once, and we get it over with.
So, just gonna move forward here real quick now with these projects. Year 4, the big project that we're looking at is 7th Street from Arthur to Monroe. That's a concrete section. It is falling apart. There's cracks everywhere. It's kind of the road right behind McDonald's is probably a good example to the east of McDonald's there. If you drive that section, it has a significant amount of cracking that needs to be replaced. And again, you'll see Lincoln Street on there because that's just one we're throwing in there to count for dollars for doing 2 blocks each year. Moving on to 5th Street. This is kind of one of the big wish list projects that we have in there just as a placeholder is Hoyt Street from 21st to East Corporate Limits. As you know, that's kind of a neat corridor out there for possible future development. And if we want it to be open to development, then we're looking at possibly doing this roadway section with curb and gutter and storm sewer and everything, you know, from 21st Street all the way out past BSDC. Now, do we have to? No, we might be able to stop at Hannibal Park or the apartments, you know, to fit our budget. But it's something that we wanted to put out there in our radar to make sure that we're accounting for it and starting to think about these type of projects. And again, Lincoln Street, you see Lincoln Street on there again. And then last but not least is our 6-year. This is our catch-all. We throw everything in 6-year so that we don't forget about it. One of the big ones on this one is 19th Street. As most of you recall, 19th Street has a problem with flooding at 19th and Court. So we're talking about a large-scale project. We're talking about pavement improvements. We're talking about storm sewer improvements, possibly a stormwater detention on the end of this thing to help control the floodwaters. It's a large-scale project that we have listed, again, about a $3 million project. And it's hanging out there. We felt like Lincoln Street should come before this particular project. The other projects listed in here are basically generated from the street logics I told you about. Anything that scored under that 55, I made sure that I put those, that they're all accounted for in the 1 and 6 year somewhere, and if they weren't, they go on year 6. So we don't forget about them, and that they move up the list and are accounted for in repairs that we need to do in the future. So, yes, sir.
When you talked about continuing redoing that street from Hoyt Street out to Hannibal, that whole area out there, that Cherry Hills and north of there, doesn't that have a problem with the sewer? Don't they have to use lift pumps out there the way it is now?
In terms of sanitary sewer,
Yes.
I know we have sanitary sewer out there, and it goes uphill from Hoyt Street, just, because I know we were looking at the drainage detention area in Hannibal Park, and it goes, I think, for the 1 mile up, it still goes uphill. So I think we'd be okay there, but now as you go east, yeah, it could become an issue when whether or not you gotta go through BSDC or how we're gonna do that, and it might require some lift stations, yeah. Because I know we do have one at BSDC, we do have lift station number 9 there that we currently have. So.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Anyone from the audience regarding the 1 and 6 year road plan? Jason and James? I knew it was a J word. Thank you very much for your report. Very good. Mr. Claybaugh?
I move that the public hearing be closed at 7:28 PM.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by McLean, that the public hearing be closed at 7:28 PM. Your vote, please. And that is approved, 7-0. Next is a public hearing on the acquisition of real property from Robert G. Sandersfield, legally described as follows. A part of Lot 2, Houston's first addition to the city of Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska. Tobias?
So Mr. Sandersfield owns a parcel of property on the southwest corner of LaSalle and Court Street on the west side of Beatrice. You can see there, the city of Beatrice owns a lot just to the south there, 113 South LaSalle Street. There was a house located there. It was damaged in a storm. 2015, 2017, somewhere right in there. Finally, it was demolished. But the city is looking to acquire approximately 2,800 square feet from Mr. Sandersfield to square off that lot that we own. Purchase price would be $2,500 is what the purchase price would be.
Questions? And it's got to clean up a couple of things too in the process. Anyone from the public? All right, Mr. Claybaugh.
I move that the public hearing be closed at 7:30 PM.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that the public hearing be closed at 7:30 PM. Your vote, please. That is approved, 7-0. Next is a resolution 6762 adopting the 1 and 6 year road and street plan for 2022.
I move that resolution number 6762 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Kerr, that resolution 6762 be passed and adopted. Any further discussion, gentlemen? From the audience? And your vote, please. And that is approved 7-0. Resolution 6762 has been passed and adopted. Next is Resolution 6763, executing the contract of sale of real estate and all necessary documents to acquire real estate from Robert G. Sandersfield.
I move that resolution number 6763 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Kerr, that Resolution 6763 be passed and adopted. And any further discussion regarding that transaction?
I just got one question, Toby. We acquired that house because he just walked away from it, correct?
He started to demolish it. He had some insurance proceeds. He ended up not finishing it off. We ended up finishing off the demolition for him. And as part of a settlement, he deeded us the property.
Didn't you give us some cash on that too, with the property?
You know, I don't think on that one. I think he just,
Okay.
because our demolition costs, again, it was partially down already. We had to go finish a few
So
things.
we'll have $2,500 in that entire property.
We've got a few more dollars. Obviously, we had some demolition
had
costs in
some
there, but I don't remember off the top of my head what the total amount is.
That's a good building lot.
Any other questions from the audience? All right, your vote, please. That is approved, 7-0. Resolution 6763 has been passed and adopted. Next is resolution number 6764, establishing various fees.
I move that resolution number 6764 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Fralin. Resolution 6764 be passed and adopted.
As we've indicated in the past, we now have all of our fees under one document known as the fee resolution. Every year, especially when we do the budget, we look to bring those back before you to make any changes that we're proposing in the upcoming budget. The only change in the fee resolution at this time is an increase in the fireworks permit fee. So those people who set up tents and sell fireworks, the fee has been $100. Nobody in the office can remember the last time it was anything other than $100, and we're proposing to increase it to $200, which is still the cheapest of any first-class city that we could find. It's $400 if you wait till after June 1st to get your permit. Most of them get them well before June 1st.
Questions? It's a moneymaker.
There were 8 permits last year.
8.
8.
Anyone from the audience? And your vote, please. And that is approved, 7-0. Resolution 6764 has been passed and adopted. Next is an ordinance to establish electric utility rates in the city of Beatrice, Nebraska, as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move that said ordinance be given number 21-37, the title thereof be approved, and rules be suspended, said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Fralin, that the ordinance be given number 21-37, the title thereof approved, the rules suspended, and the ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight. Motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That is approved, 7-0. Ordinance number 21-37 by number the first time, ordinance number 21-37 by number the second time, and ordinance number 21-37 by number the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 21-37 be passed and approved.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by McLean, that ordinance number 21-37 be approved. Tobias?
We've talked about the electric rate ordinance a number of times. Again, as indicated, it's a 0% rate increase, and net effect across the board for everybody.
Questions from the audience? And your vote, please. And that is approved, 7-0. Ordinance number 21-37 has been passed and adopted. Next is ordinance to revise the water rate changes for water purchased from the city of Beatrice, Nebraska, as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move that said ordinance be given number 21-38, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Kerr, that the ordinance be given number 21-38, the title thereof approved, the rules suspended, and the ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight. Again, a motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That is approved, 7-0. Ordinance number 21-38 by number the first time, ordinance 21-38 by number the second time, ordinance number 21-38 by number the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 21-38 be passed and approved.
Second.
By Claybaugh, seconded by Fralin, that ordinance number 21-38 be passed and approved.
This rate increase is 10 cents per 1,000 gallons on your water bill. Again, for the average residential customer, it's 48 cents per month.
Questions? Rich?
Are we still supplying some of the outlying cities with water?
Billy? Yes,
Billy,
correct.
has there been an increase into what they pay us over the years?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a right answer.
There you go, easy question.
I'm voting against it. I raised my objections when we discussed it before. I know it's not gonna do any good, but I'm voting against it, so. I don't see the need for the rate increase. I know it seems like it's a small amount, but I think this water increase and the sewer increases, I think it hits a section of the population that can least afford it, so. You don't need my vote to pass it. I'm voting against it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone from the public? And your vote, please. And that is approved 6-1 with Councilman Fairbanks voting no. Ordinance number 21-38 has been passed and adopted. Next is an ordinance to regulate the fees and charges for the use of the wastewater treatment system of the city of Beatrice as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move that said ordinance be given number 21-39, the title thereof be approved, and rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
By Claybaugh, seconded by Freeland, that the ordinance be given number 21-39, the title thereof approved, the rules suspended, and the ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight. Motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That is approved 7-0. Ordinance number 21-39 by number the first time. Ordinance 21-39 by number the second time, and ordinance 21-39 by number the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 21-39 be passed and approved.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Kerr, that ordinance 21-39 be passed and approved.
This rate ordinance calls for a consumption, or an increase in the consumption rate of 25 cents per 1,000 gallons in both FY 22 and FY 23. Average increase for the average residential customer will be 67 cents per month.
Questions?
Same objection. I'm voting against this as well. We have cash reserves in both of these departments. I don't see the need, so I'm voting against it. Like I said, you don't need my vote to pass it.
Thanks, Ted. Anyone else from the audience? Your vote, please. That is approved 6-1 with Councilman Fairbanks voting no. Ordinance number 21-31 has been passed and adopted. Next is an ordinance to adopt the biannual appropriations bill for fiscal years 2022 and 2023.
I move that said ordinance be given number 21-40, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh and seconded by Freeland, that ordinance number 21-40 be read by number only 3 times tonight. A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that is approved 7-0. Ordinance number 21-40 by number the first time, ordinance number 21-40 by number the second time, and ordinance 21-40 by number the third and final time.
I move to amend.
Yes.
I move to amend the budget and allocate $30,000 from the Economic Development Program to Main Street and direct city administration to negotiate contract with Main Street.
Second.
Motion to amend to provide $30,000 to Main Street for the next 2 years in the biennial budget, with an agreement to be negotiated between Main Street and the city administrator. Any discussion? Mr. Morgan.
I fully feel that Main Street is a great organization. I question this particular 30,000 and how things were written and expressed last week. So probably don't need my vote, but I'm going to vote no. It's nothing against the organization. It's just the funding mechanism.
I will second on his. I will be voting no on it also. I think there's some, they could get their $10,000 by jumping hoops. And I mean, everybody has hoops to jump on other things, and I don't think we've ever turned them down on anything. And so
I would just say that the 20,000 that was allocated for some of the stuff that they mentioned was not designated 100% for them. It was available to several different places throughout the city, not all for them, so that it wasn't just $10,000. I will say that I am going to vote for it, but I also know you guys have a great group down there, and you're going to be held accountable to the 30 grand. It's we don't want to see anything go away from what you're already doing. I think what you're going to do with the businesses, although I'll be keeping my tally on your 140 visits you have proposed for each fiscal year to each business, and know that there's going to be accountability to this 30,000. It can't just be dispersed and not be held accountable. So I wish you guys the best of luck with it.
Mr. Kerr?
Yes, the 20,000, but you also have to take in consideration that there are in-kind services that we give them. Their building, their office, probably $1,000 a month if you were to rent that out. That's $12,000 a year, plus all of their electric, heat, air, trash, sewer. That's all paid for by the city. We're probably talking another $10,000 a year. So there's $22,000 on top of the 20,000.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Rich, but the fact is you cited the 20,000 that was set aside for what they specifically asked for, and that's what I'm arguing with you about. The in-kind stuff is there. It's always been there. So it's a good program. We can always come back next year and say, hey, you didn't do nothing with the first 30,000. We ain't going to give it to you.
Any other comments? Anyone from the public before we vote on the amendment? You don't have anything? Okay. And your vote, please.
This is the motion on the amendment.
On the amendment, that is correct. And that is approved 5-2 with Councilman Morgan and Kerr voting against. That amendment passes. Next is
Then we're gonna go back.
I move that ordinance number 21-40 be passed and approved.
Second.
moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Fairbanks, that ordinance number 21-40 be passed and approved. Any further discussion, gentlemen? From the audience.
The only thing I'll note is the dollar amounts don't change because, again, in the Economic Development Program Fund, you had already budgeted to spend all the dollars. You just simply allocated them differently, and that's why you don't need to amend the dollar amounts that were previously stated.
Thank you, Tobias. And your vote, please. That is approved 7-0. Ordinance number 21-40 has been passed and adopted.
I move to increase the total restricted funds authority for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021 and ending in September 30th, 2022 by an additional 1% as authorized in section 13-519 of the Nebraska Revised Statutes.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh and seconded by Fralin. Motion to increase the restricted funds authority for fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022 by an additional 1% as authorized in section 13-519 of the Nebraska Revised Statute.
So state statute has different restrictions out there for the city of Beatrice. One of those is called the lid. It restricts the amount of restricted funds we can have, which includes property tax and sales tax. We cannot adopt a budget which contains restricted funds totaling more than the budget restriction funds from the previous year, plus certain things. One of those is statutory allowable growth rate, but another one that's allowed is an additional 1% if approved by 75% of this body. And so that's why we bring this back to you every year, ask for you to approve it, to increase that restricted funds. Doesn't mean you're going to use it, but it means you have the ability to use it in the future if you need to.
Questions? From the audience? And your vote, please. And that is approved 7-0. Mr. Claybaugh?
Now we're on
Where are we at?
Sorry, we're going to go down to resolutions. We've already done that.
Number 4.
Next is resolution number 6765, setting the property tax request for the city of Beatrice for fiscal year 2022.
I move that resolution number 6765 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybon and seconded by Fralin that resolution number 6765 be passed and adopted. Discussion?
This resolution sets the property tax levy at .376804, which, as we discussed earlier, is a decrease from the previous years of about 2%.
So what will they see on the $100,000?
Oh, yeah.
I thought you had that. I wouldn't have asked if I didn't think you had it right there.
I don't have it off the top of my head, but I will tell you here.
I'm sorry. Well, you knew what it was gonna increase on the water and the sewer. I had that.
He might make you try to look that up.
I can do it quick.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I apologize. I thought you had it.
Hold on.
That's a good question.
I thought maybe the scouts would wanna know. Somebody would know.
Yeah.
Want to know that.
He's really wanting to know because he's down like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, they've
He
got a
can't-
pool going on.
He can't wait. He can't wait.
See if he
About
gets it.
$7.66
Okay.
for a $100,000 home, roughly.
About 766.
Any other questions from the audience? Your vote, please. That is approved 7-0. Resolution 6765 has been passed and adopted.
$16.
Next is Resolution 6766, calculating the amount of unused restricted funds authority.
I move that resolution number 6766 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Fralin, that Resolution 6766 be passed and adopted.
Again, we talked about restricted funds just a minute ago and what the state allows you to do, and so again, so it's just a resolution we ask you to pass each time. It doesn't say you're gonna spend them, it just gives you the ability to use them in the future if you need to.
Questions? Audience, your vote, please. That is approved 7-0. Resolution 6766 has been passed and adopted. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Hannah and Linda for your hard work in putting the budget together, and all the department heads for what they have done and how they have monitored their income and expenses, and city administration for what they've endured through all of this. So again, really appreciate everything you've done. With that, public forum is next. The purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion of these items will be taken by the city council at this time. Is there anyone here for the public forum?
Just one thing, Mr. Mayor.
Sir?
For 20-some years, I've asked Linda if the budget and everything is all right. She's retiring, and I think it's gonna go to Hannibal. Hannibal, is the budget all right? All right, that's all I need to know.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for the Boy Scouts attending tonight. Really appreciate your attendance. You're welcome at any time, and the leaders. Thank you very much. With that said, our next meeting is going to be on September 20th at 7 o'clock in these chambers. Planning on a work session on September 27th, if it works out. And there will be a special meeting on September 30th at the City Hall Conference Room for the purpose of approving the final claims for fiscal year 2021. Mr. Claybaugh?
I move that the meeting be adjourned at 7:49 PM.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Fralin, that the meeting be adjourned at 7:49 PM. Your vote, please. That is approved 7-0.